Hello and welcome to the June open house for CHIME, the Chaplaincy Institute of Maine. CHIME is an interfaith wisdom school where we ordain interfaith ministers who serve in the community with integrity, spiritual presence, and prophetic voice. I'm very pleased to have Gabriel Burford with us tonight as our presenter. As a Deep Roots Community and Climate Chaplain ordained at CHIME, Reverend Gabe is passionate about belonging in the context of climate. By advocating for this time not just as a crisis, but as an opportunity to revive the social fabric we all share, Gabe highlights that climate work and activism at large are not just for public advocates, politicians, or scientists. If we find our place together as communities of belonging, we can find our place caring for the world. In strengthening our values of mutual support, we can strengthen a climate response right where we are. More on Gabe's work can be found at revgabrielburford.com. So tonight is being recorded, as you all know, for marketing purposes, and it will be edited and aired at a later date. Um, yeah, I think that's everything I wanted to say. I'm Reverend Myra Robinson. I'm sorry. I knew there was something I was forgetting. I was ordained in 2016, and going to Chime was the best decision I ever made. I love everything there is to do with being an interfaith chaplain. And I now, the past 2 years, have served Chime as a faculty advisor and community programs coordinator. And without further ado, I'm going to let you take it away, Gabe. Thank you.
I was getting some tips on the audio I've got here, so let me know if the audio needs any adjustment or anything like that. Um, yeah, I hope Myra's introduction kind of gave you a bit of a sense that part of what we're going to get out of tonight is just um, an example of what interfaith chaplaincy can be, and it's very flexible, role to step into in our time. Um, I chose to kind of have a pretty particular sense of direction when I got ordained. I wanted to go straight into the intersection between spirituality and climate, and that's been a big experiment, as you'll see throughout our little time together tonight. Um, you know, interfaith spirituality is new, very new, for us all to approach and share as spaces. And the same goes with climate. So it's a very, open field, which I'm both grateful for and also challenged, challenged by. Um, Luckily, I'm not doing it alone. Most of the things I'm showing you tonight, have taken place in the context of communities. Um, Actually, one of our participants tonight is a member of the Rose Chapel, which is, I don't know, the community that I serve on a regular basis. Um, I hope tonight doesn't seem, too much like a collage. Although to be honest, that is kind of the way my brain works. Uh, I remember one of the last conversations I had with my chime cohort before we were graduating was, I felt like I was in kind of an orchard of ideas. Um, and that's, still kind of the way I feel. Um, but it can seem more like a landscape than a linear, uh, you know, agenda or project. Um, I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's a healthy, way for us to approach problems in this time. Especially because, part of adapting to a healthier relationship to the natural world is kind of a non-linear approach to problem solving and to sharing space together. But we'll leave a little bit extra time for questions um, about what I brought up as well. Before we really jump in, I also want to say um, that we're on sanctuary time. Whenever I get the opportunity to facilitate an evening or a group, I make an extra reminder that, if you need anything, please don't hesitate to pause your video or do whatever you need to do. Get up, grab water, get some tea. Um, that's what we say at the Rose. We say, we're on sanctuary time. Um, it's also an extra reminder to just be yourself. There's no need to wear a social mask tonight. Um, no need to, hold up any social conditioning that maybe kind of keeps us small or makes us feel like we need to protect ourselves as much. Um, and also, the last thing that sanctuary time means for me is that the time that we shared together tonight isn't just about us. You know, it's a moment occurring in a vast fabric of relationships, and we don't really know how our time together tonight will change that vast web of relationships. We may create very small ripples that contribute to something larger, and just to feel into that um, idea that we're every moment is sacred in a way because it is a part of that vast web of relationships. Um, so kind of in recognition or in honor of that sacred dimension of this ordinary evening, I also um, am going to start with a chant, and this chant kind of brings up some of the dreams that I feel called to share around climate and community building, and we'll, dive into them more a little bit later. But for now, I'll just jump right in and share it with you. So I'll ring a bell, and then we'll do a moment of silence, and then I'll start the chant, and then we can continue after the chant. I call out to all my kin, near and far, young and old, calling out to the warm-hearted, all those full of tenderness and care. Your joy and your sorrow, I make it mine. Your joy and your sorrow, I make it mine. Calling out to all my kin, all those lost and left behind, calling out to the heavy-hearted, your joy and your sorrow, I make them mine. Calling out to all my kin, all those caught in fire Your joy and your sorrow, I make them mine. So that was a brief version of a chant that I do regularly at the Rose. You may have recognized it if you're a fan of Krishna Das, who's the American-born um, devotional chanter who studied in India. But as you can obviously tell, it's you know um, there's a lot of new ideas woven in there. Um, and one of the ideas, or one of the dreams, you could say, that I hope to share through that chant is the idea of extending our sense of belonging, both in terms of our love and care, but also even a sense of responsibility, widening our sense of who we belong to as a family. I don't think that's the kind of work you can do alone. I think you have to find a a new spiritual family, so to speak, or a family that's trying to share um, the challenges of living a heart-based life um, in order to become that open-hearted, or to have that encouragement to keep widening our circles of care. And that's you know part of the work that I see happening at what I like to call in the root bridge anchor well model, which was kind of the main you know subject of this talk initially, when I was super excited about writing it. And I think it's going to be an element to kind of open the door to a larger conversation tonight. um, but in the context of that model, spaces where we can find the nourishment and encouragement to widen a sense of care like that is a well circle. And it's a nice little segue to that model. So I apologize for the graphics on here. The picky graphic designer in me would have liked to give you guys some higher quality graphics. I actually Pat Kaplan made fun of me for the little yellow bridges, because he told me they looked like hamburgers when I showed it to her this winter. Um, but anyway, this was just a quick draft to kind of get down some ideas that were coming to me this winter. And again, this model started as a way to kind of flip the script around creating change at the community level um, in our contemporary culture. The reason I like it is because it both gives a kind of you know a basic picture of the many different needs that we have in terms of building communities that can create change and take care of their members. But also, it gives us a picture that gives us that opportunity to kind of see maybe what we've been paying less attention to in Western organizing, and maybe to some degree even, Western community building today. You can see that the largest circle here, this purple circle, that's actually meant to represent roots. Um, the larger circle is a root circle, and we'll get into what that means in a minute. And then you have these yellow bridge circles, that's hamburgers, and anchor circle you can see there, and then the bottom is the well circle. So you can think of this kind of roughly as a map in a way of a community. The idea being that, there's a lot that goes on above ground on the surface level, visibly, and in a community. We gather together in a certain space, certain building, maybe. Um, Typically, there's projects we have to take care of, and kind of ongoing responsibilities we share together, and those are kind of represented by the bridge. You can think of a bridge circle meaning, you know, a circle that people would gather in on a regular basis from time to time, usually on a, you know, regular intervals to kind of maintain a certain need for a community. Like there was a climate group I was in this winter that was doing an ongoing project, an ongoing climate awareness event called the Saturday Stand. And we would have a bi-weekly bridge meeting for the Saturday Stand to kind of take care of that project on an ongoing basis. Um, and we can go into the other ones if folks are interested um, later. But for now, I think we'll jump right down to the root and the well. Um, the idea being that, because we are kind of an extroverted society, in a way, we can tend to, even in things like community organizing, be more focused on what we're doing rather than how we are being together, or the kind of relationships that we're sharing together, or how the overall quality or tone of our community fabric is developing. And the reason this root circle is so large is it's really trying to kind of emphasize the idea that a tree only grows as large as its root system, which in this little metaphor of the root bridge anchor well model is talking about our relationships. So our community can only create and sustain as many projects as deep as our relationships go and how strong our relationships are. So a group that would be gathering based on this model would spend a significant amount of time not working on projects together, but just sharing quality time together. You can see there's a little description of the root circle on the left here that I wrote for a kind of the younger climate network that was going to use this model to help build an online climate community. But it says, a relational sanctuary, the root circle is the largest circle for a reason. This is a foundational community circle to which all belong that encourages us all to find personal sovereignty and autonomy in an atmosphere of relaxed belonging. And then there's other little metaphors that we were playing with in there, like the idea of really encouraging people to have a sense of self-autonomy and self-sovereignty, which I've found important in climate organizing because, when you have a lot of projects running and all at once, sometimes we start to treat each other just as elements of these projects or just seeing the roles, and really encouraging people to kind of rest in not having to do anything to be a part of the community kind of strengthens that sense that our relationships and our belonging is what really matters and what makes us strong enough to be able to climb up the tree and do a big project or do an intensive project, which is what the anchor, the orange anchor circle represents. But at the bottom there is my favorite circle. This is the well circle. The idea being here that communities could create well circles to do things like a meditation group, or psychologists could create a well circle, like a well-being circle. But you can kind of think of it as like the inner nutrients that we're drawing from whether we're a spiritual community or whether we're a secular community working on climate organizing, the nutrients that we're drawing up from our deeper heritage or our, you know, deeper foundations, which for me, not that I would, make this a requirement by any means to a community that was doing this model, but to me also has a mystical uh, dimension to it. Some of the best change making or organizing that's happened in the world has had this idea that the foundation of the work was spirituality or was mysticism even. So for those interested, well circles are kind of like places we can drop into the well of the heart and find the sustenance we need to carry on our work. Which, for me, that's what the Rose Chapel is. I mentioned at the beginning, it's, even though it's not currently connected to a larger group that's using this root bridge anchor well model, I know for me and for other participants in the group, it has become a kind of a well that we go to sustain the other work that we're doing. I don't think I'd still be doing climate work if it weren't for the Rose. Um, so I'm very grateful to them. I just wanted to share with everybody a little bit about that community because it does both represent the well circle in this model, but also really dives deep into some of the questions of community as dream and community as shelter. Let me see if I can bring a little image of that project up for you guys. So this is the Patreon page for the Rose. The reason I bring it up mostly is because of the image at the top, which is a nice symbol of some of the inspirations behind the Rose Chapel. Even though this is a Western photograph, there is a kind of connotation of meditation. Um, the woman in the center of the image is sitting with actually I don't think this was intentional, but she's sitting with a traditional Buddhist mudra, which is a sacred sign that you make with your hand. It's the earth touching mudra that the Buddha was said to do after he, in the traditional myth, awoke from under the Bodhi tree. So, a lot of the people at the Rose, like me, are very inspired by Buddhism. We are an interfaith group, so we don't, only draw from Buddhist traditions. But if you come to one of the services at the Rose, it'll look a little bit like a blend between a UU service and a Buddhist sangha. About half the time we spend meditating, and half the time we do more of a joys and sorrows, kind of a relaxed version of a sermon which we call the Heart's Harvest, that everyone actually is open to do. I'd probably do most of them simply because people don't sign up for them, that often. But it's out there that anybody can do the Heart's Harvest if they just send me an email and they can have the podium, so to speak. It is a metaphorical podium because we are an online meeting over Zoom. We have um, a member from Texas, a member from Long Island, New York, and then Jeannie and I are here in Maine. So we're also a very small community, counting myself. We're about 4 people that meet regularly, which to me has been actually, a big blessing and an invitation to really consider what is change making. a lot of climate organizing can end up being a numbers game if you do it in the secular perspective. But leaning into some pretty deep topics and making some big leaps together at the Rose has really made me consider that, there's another side to all of this that is about quality. What really sustains our hearts, I think, is the question we're leaning to at the Rose, rather than how many people can we get to a voting box. That chant, I mentioned the chant that I started this evening with. It's one of the most frequent chants we do at the Rose. We're trying to be a kind of container for a sense of kinship, which we'll go into a little bit. I can share a little bit about a book that I recently wrote about kinship. But we're trying to choose to create a community of care that is extending a sense of belonging between its members, but also in widening circles out to the world. Those who are familiar with Mahayana Buddhism probably know that that's a big part of the Mahayana, to go extend the heart wider and wider, going beyond. If you look into one of the Heart Sutra in the Mahayana scriptures, there is this sense of extending the heart ever wider. So the kinship practices that we do are based off of this sense of choosing, which is the title of my book, Choosing Each Other, Choosing the World. I apologize, I'm flipping around between screens here quite a bit. I hope it's not too disorienting people, but this is the last switch that we're going to do. So this is a little image of the book. So this is, the dream that we're working from. I think, when I titled this talk, Community as Dream, Community as Shelter, I was really hoping to lean into the sense that in order to create shelters, we have to have dreams that we share together. Without our dreams, we won't have a kind of North Star to follow and to keep us on our path together. I'll just read a little bit about another dream that is kind of written into this. So in times with no shortage of tragedy and looming danger, we can prioritize curating shelters of joy, where fresh waters run over our minds and our hearts can drink from the cup of belonging. Given time and practice, these viewpoints of kinship and sanctuary are quite capable of bringing us greater well-being. Interested practitioners, however, may wish to supplement these foundational practices with those that actively cultivate joy and gratitude. Both qualities of experience are enriching, but enhance a psychological resilience in a mind now capable of keeping its sails up, so to speak, in a world of storms. So in that little paragraph, there's a lot. We have the dream, these metaphors, kind of suggesting that we create, a space that recognizes both the tragedy of the world, but also the need for levity and joy, and to share richness together. It also points at this idea of, the Rose is, 4 or 5 members currently. But we are creating this sort of resilience in each other that who knows what work will carry that resilience into down the line. Just as, tonight, who knows, maybe something, a little spark will have been created in one of us and we'll share that spark with someone else and it might grow and grow. We never really know when we think about the butterfly effect or that, we're in a huge web of relationships, what each moment can bring. This choosing each other, choosing the world is currently only available online. If anybody's interested, I can help people find that um, at the end of our time. That's sharing the heart's harvest, which again is, you might recognize, that's what our sermon at the Rose is also called. Everything that I've shared with you all tonight, and everything that we do at the Rose, or that people could do through the Root Bridge Anchor Well model. I don't pretend to say that these are the solutions to the problems that we're facing, but they are, a part of a larger adaptation that I think we're all making collectively to rethink what it means to build community and what it means to share belonging. And if anything, we bring anything from tonight, um, I just hope to give us all a sense of possibility. Um, One of my main collaborators here in Maine in terms of local climate activism, he has a group called the Possibility Alliance, which is one of the most powerful things I think we can share today. Is just a sense of we have incredible ingenuity as human beings, and an incredible ability to carry a vast art. And if this little time together can be a symbol of that, I'd be very happy. The last thing I wanted to share with everybody before we do a little questions about these ideas, before we move into the chime questions, is a little quote from another writing project that I did last year called Love for Our Time. Looking forward into this time with an analytical mind, we cannot say what will come to pass. We cannot say whether the rivers will run dry or the fields will lie barren. We must look to the heart for a compass. Only it can say what we must do. We must plant again and again the seeds of hope within, knowing that love would do so. Love would not neglect our dreams. Love would carry them and nourish them as if they were the world itself, the seeds of the world unfolding, the world of our sons and daughters and all those yet to come. I think that tending and that carrying of dreams is, I know for me, it's been very, very challenging. I think, a problem as large as climate activism will kind of blow us over. I know it has for me, over and over and over again. So if I were, or if many organizers were trying to keep doing climate work just out of a sense of the thrill of success, so to speak, I think, we would be in trouble. But, if we do it from love and for love, we are, beginning with our reward, which is what I and the members of the Rose try to encourage each other to do. I I wrote that out on a newsletter one time for the Rose a few months ago, and Jean has reminded me of it many times now when I come to the Rose saying, kind of in despair about the last climate project not having the impact I'd wished. Um, but like a good Buddhist sangha, which is encouraged to be considered to be a pillar that we rely on as a sense of support in traditional Buddhism. Um, you know, our community is a way of having each other's backs and reminding each other of what we really believe in, um, rather than leaning out on something as unpredictable as success. So I hope that's given you a sense of some of the ideas of what community as dream, community as shelter means for me, and especially recognizing that our time together isn't an isolated event. Who knows what we'll carry forward from this, or what little openings will spark from tonight. I wanted to spend a little time with questions so we can make it personal and it's not just me going on and on about my perspective. So yeah, we have about 10 or 15 minutes to open it up.